me breathe. You should put this in the blue first. Hi. Just, hello.
Hey, what is going on, my fellow Godlies? This is Vance from Warframe God Builds, and today we're finally going to be taking a look at Nova Prime. This is the one Warframe with the ultimate equalizer, the Molecular Prime, and whatever choice weapon you're using. Enemies just cannot seem to handle this combination, whether it be Grineer Heavies, Grineer Bombards, Grineer Machetes, Runners, Chargers, Ancients, Juggernaut
Corpus
Behemoth,
Tech,
Corrupted
Moa,
Bombard,
Mutilus Moa,
Corrupted
Arid
Heavy,
Bombard,
Arid Machete,
Arid Heavy,
Corrupted
Machete,
Ancient,
Bursa.
Okay. They get it. Wow. Nova Prime can pretty much take out any enemy worth mentioning, and if this entices you into getting Nova, then I would suggest moving over to Europa and fighting the boss Raptor there. Of course, that's only going to drop you the normal Nova, so if you want Prime, you're going to have to crank out those relics. Now, before we go too far into depth into what makes Nova Nova, I wanted to take a moment to discuss the Nova Asuri collection. Now, personally, I think that this skin is hideous, and don't let this whole advertisement spiel fool you, because the arms actually do not display in the Syandana, and I don't know if it's a bug or not, or if it was originally intended this way. But the arms aren't even going to pop out of the Syandana unless you use the powers from Nova. That's right, these arms aren't even going to pop out if you put them on another frame and you cast the powers. Don't let this fool you. The arms do not appear normally. You have to cast your powers, and you also must be Nova. It's a very sad, wasted opportunity at an otherwise awesome Syandana, which can unfortunately only be purchased through the 225 Platinum Bundle. Alright, moving on with Nova's actual abilities. Although there's not a whole lot of first abilities that have their time to shine, Null Star is not to be taken lightly. It creates little energy bubbles that orbit Nova and lash out at nearby foes. Antimatter Drop and Wormhole, though, are actually very situational, and it's really up to the user how they use them. In situations where the pod is maybe crowded, or there's just too much of a mob present in front of you, Antimatter Drop is going to be kind of useful because you can throw it out, pump damage into it, and it's going to go off like a grenade, dispersing those mobs that you had an issue with to begin with. Wormhole, however, is going to be kind of like a Loki's teleport. You're going to aim at a certain area in the battlefield, and based off of your power range, you're going to be able to teleport to that area that you aim to, which is nice. But Molecular Prime is really my go-to power for every situation. I can't think of anything that Molecular Prime didn't solve for me. Whether I'm doing speed runs for XP on the new Draco on Eris Akkad, or if I'm just trying to slow an enemy down because they're too much of a threat to my existence. Molecular Prime is going to be the go-to power for this particular setup, as it is with every setup. Just don't fail to neglect all your other powers that may have a little bit more usefulness depending upon your playstyle. Okay, so because it's Nova, we're actually going to be covering two different particular builds with her. And we haven't done that since God Builds Episode 3 Ash. Now let's get right into it, shall we? For my standard slow type of build, I go with Corrosive Protection, Piercing Step, Prime Continuity, Prime Flow, Vitality, Rage, Quick Thinking, Narrow-Minded, Stretch, and Transient Fortitude. All of it is pretty self-explanatory, especially since we're going to be slowing enemies down. We're going to go with like a higher power, strength, a little bit of range. Of course, you're going to rock your standard health mod. And then the only thing that's really important in this setup is the Quick Thinking. Now, because Prime Flow gives us about a little bit more than 700 energy maximum, We're going to also put on Quick Thinking, that way when our health gets depleted, it will spill over into our energy, and we're damn near going to be invincible that way. Hits that would otherwise kill a lot of people are not going to take us down. Piercing Step is kind of a preference, it's a choice from me, and you can feel free to swap it out for anything that you want. Just be aware that I only use 3 Forma for this setup, and if you use anything other than Piercing Step, you're probably going to have to end up using more Forma. Now for Configuration B, I'm choosing to run, again, Corrosive Projection, this time Shock Absorbers, Prime Continuity, Prime Flow, Vitality, Quick Thinking, Rage, Overextended, Narrow-Minded, and Lightning Dash. Now again, I chose to run with Lightning Dash specifically because I'm trying to avoid that 4th Forma. But if you wanted to throw something else here that's a little bit more useful, then by all means, go for it. However, you just want to make sure that your power strength is negative. That way, for this build, you can run a Speed Nova, and that way when you go to Arasakad and you do XP farms, you can make the thing speed up faster, therefore making everybody else in your party very happy. Now it's worth mentioning that we're also once again using Xeneric Lens, specifically for the Energy Overflow. Energy Overflow is going to be at its absolute best when you have it maxed out. So don't be like me, actually go put forth the work into the Energy Overflow, that way you can have it maxed out and positively benefit as much as you can. What this is going to do for Nova is, in those instances where the Quick Thinking has depleted all of your energy, you still might be able to survive the oncoming onslaught, and therefore Energy Overflow will restore as much energy as humanly possible without having to put Energy Siphon into our build. For weapons, I'm actually choosing to run with the Dera Vandal. Now I know that this is kind of hard to get a hold of because it was an event weapon, and the only way you can pick it up is through sorties, but I promise you that when this is combined with Molecular Prime, the results are catastrophic. The only thing that I can recommend next to the Dera Vandal would probably be the Braton Prime. Just know that this is going to eat up the most amount of your Forma, as I put into 6 Forma for the Dera Vandal, and 5 for the Braton Prime. For secondaries, I'm rolling with none other than the Akstilletto Prime. Now the Akstilletto Prime was highly requested after the Mesa God Builds trailer. And the reason for that being is because it's got one of the best damages amongst the secondary primes with a decent fire rate. And this is going to mesh very well with Molecular Prime. It's going to complement that power alongside Dera Vandal or Braton Prime if you choose to run it. Just note that if you use anything else that's high damaging without that fire rate, you're probably not going to see the same results. As one could guess from the trailer that we released for Nova, we are actually using the Ninkondi. Now the reason why we chose to run the Ninkondi in this build is specifically because it's going to mesh really well with the Molecular Prime. Granted, it has a 100% status chance, and that Atlantis Vulcan is renowned for having combos that proc every time it hits, which is a lot. The only thing that I care to mention here is the fact that Prime Fury is absolutely needed because Ninkondi is otherwise too slow without it. Prime Reach is kind of a preference thing. If you don't feel like it's necessary, then feel free to swap it out. But Prime Pressure Point is going to provide the optimal amount of damage, and Melee Prowess was specifically put in here to bump it up to the 100% status chance that it's got. The last thing worth mentioning in this setup is my adorable little furball of destruction, the Smeeta Kavat Genocide. Now since the Mesa God builds, this build was not at all ready. Granted, we didn't even have Pack Leader, specifically because Mesa didn't use a melee weapon, but now since we're using Ninkondi, this mod is going to be incredibly useful. One thing that's important to note here is that Nova with her Molecular Prime and her weapons are going to do enough damage as is, but because the Smeeta Kavat is in use here, you're going to see red crits pretty often, and every time you're using Nullstar, it's going to be pretty amusing to see red crits come off of such a low damage attack. So what exactly have we learned from today's episode of Warframe God Builds? Well, on a personal note, I learned why everybody and their grandma loves to use Nova and why she's so mainstream. It's because she has a lot of in-game potential. She's definitely one of those Warframes that you're not going to know the delight of until you get your hands on yourself. So with that being said, if you found this video to be informative and you liked it, definitely hit the thumbs up, share it to your Facebook and all your friends, comment, subscribe, the usual. Follow my Twitter, that way you can know when I go live on Twitch, and then follow my Twitch, that way you can tune in, maybe win a giveaway. And until next time, peace. There's going to be quite a bit more features to look forward to, particularly from this page. Obviously, the Warframe God builds Nova, the vote there soon after that. I'm attempting to learn the new program so I can provide Exidium-based lore to this page. On top of the elite packages that we usually give out for Orion during the streams, I'm also working through another giveaway that I